Hello everybody, welcome to another Valheim video. I'm excited today to be streaming at a time where I have a decent internet connection, so that's great. What we're going to be doing today is buying material using the coins that we acquired in our previous burial chamber runs, because there's actually this really cool spot in the beginning of the server, and currently there's no place for new players to make a bed. So that's our goal, to make a very simple little inn that new players see and it becomes the first place that they make their bed. Nothing complicated, just a basic building. That's what we're gonna be working on. And I have our cart set up and I already know the spot. So it's just a matter of surviving our adventure through said spot. And that is a whole other, that's a whole other situation, right? That's gonna be the hardest part. I'm gonna take an appropriate amount of arrows and bring out the big ones, you know, the frost arrows. Those are the crazy arrows. You don't wanna use frost arrows unless you're gonna destroy some stuff. But it actually looks like we have some issues here. Something visited during the night, I would wager a Grey Dwarf, and it appears to have busted down our gate. Funny, actually. That's one of my favorite parts of playing on a server, is that while it's active, like while you're asleep, the server is active. So you can come back to your base and, you know, your base isn't, uh-oh. And then your base isn't there, or there's all sorts of crazy nonsense going on. You wanna go? You wanna go, Mr. Shaman? Don't you heal him. Don't do that. Poisoning me? Come on, I haven't even made it out of this Black Forest area yet. And you're already giving me a hard time. I see you, troll. I see you. Don't act like I don't see you. I see you. The one time I'm grateful for all the undead. It's funny how Path of Magic, it's not really the Black Forest, it's the undead forest. The zombie woods. I'm not really sure what to call it. But I've barely gotten ganked by any Grey Dwarfs. What I've been getting ganked by are all these undead. They're really the ones that are causing me a ruckus. I missed? Come on. There we go. You're on fire, right? Yeah. Alright, there we go. That's our first creature, right? So, let's get it going. Here we are. Nice. Alright, how's this going? That looks good. Settings are set up right. Nice. And that looks like it is actually streaming. Awesome. And also, I know, like, nobody's going to be watching me because I'm too early. So pretty much I'm making a YouTube video for you guys to watch. I don't know how this is going to go, but I kind of got to work with my internet connection. So we're going to see how it goes. But our adventure must continue. And we're gonna go to the beginning area of the path, but this cart is a little bit heavy. So that may backfire on me, but it's okay. We're gonna get there. I have a feeling it's not gonna be so bad. Just gotta, you know, make it work. Hello, by the way, my one early morning viewer. I think maybe it might be teens, because you're probably the only person in a reasonable place to watch this. But if you're not teens, hello, welcome. I don't know who you would be, but welcome. I'm currently going up this to get back on the path to build something. I got this cart. We're gonna build like a place for new players when they first join Path of Magic. I just need to get up here. There we go. Alright, it should be reasonable now. We'll see how things go. Maybe one or two things will destroy me, but I think it's alright. Luckily, we don't have to travel too far down this path to get to the magic spot that I'm going for. It's around here somewhere. almost all the way back to the beginning, but even though it may seem like we're really far down the path, we're actually like barely even on the path. This is pretty much just the very beginning. This is the first river that the path crosses. And here's our first base from back in the day. That's cool. It feels nostalgic already. So if you're interested in trying out Path of Magic, while I have all this time to lug this cart around, I can tell you a little bit about the server. So Path of Magic is a changed and altered Valheim server, but it's altered with something called Expand World Prefabs. And what's so cool about this is that you don't need any mods. So you can make a sort of custom Valheim server experience, and you don't need any mods to set it up. It's very, very fun, to be honest. Like way, way, way more fun than just Valheim alone. Because normally, you can only change Valheim as much as Iron Gate has given you customization to do so. So pretty much you could only change the world modifiers. But these days, thanks to Expand World Prefabs, we can change so many things. And it really changes the game. As you can see, if I enter the chat, the server has noticed Labrat is building, Labrat is shooting arrows, Labrat is carting in the Black Forest. That's all Expand World Prefabs. You can make the server talk to you, you can make the server spawn things at different times, you can adjust the dungeon experience so different monsters sign up. There's different monsters sign up. So different monsters show up. There are loads and loads of different options available to us. Let's see. Yeah, I got my fancy jumping potion I haven't been using. And actually one of the inspirations for me for Path of Magic was actually an experience I had in classic World of Warcraft, where I was with a group of people and we were like going towards some quest. I think it was in Desolus, right? And so there's this long winding sort of path through the center of the zone. And we were on that, and then all sorts of stuff happened to us. Like these monsters kept chasing us and trying to attack us, and we like stayed together as a group, but one or two of our people were like super, super weak, so they would be one shot. So we had to keep them alive and make sure the monsters didn't aggro them. And it was one of the funnest experiences I've had. I kind of realized, like, dang, you know, like we often think that we need dungeons for group experiences, but maybe we can make a group experience that is traveling down some dangerous road together and having to get to the other end, you know? Hello, Yannick. Good to see you. I guess maybe by streaming at this hour, I'm more accessible to people in the other time zones. I basically had to change my streaming time because my internet is horrendous. So if I stream while other people are using the internet, I essentially can't stream. I have to find times that work better, right? Interesting tea there. What's this? Just some random cargo crate? Alright. That's kind of funny. I wonder where that came from. Someone probably died. Maybe they died the exact way I did, with a cart in a bad place. Ooh, the weather's clearing up though. Now that's nice. It looks like we're almost back to the meadow. I think I can actually see, yeah, I see some meadow trees over there. That's promising. Ah, don't worry, Yannick. Internet is what it is. I'm pretty good at finding ways to use what I have available. So I can't really get better internet at the moment because of where I live. Like, I could get that fiber connection, but literally the box that they plug the fiber into is full. So like, I thought that was some bullshit because I tried to get it upgraded and it all looks fine, and then the contractor shows up and he's like, hey, yo, we can't do it, 'cause there's this box and all the plugs are full and there's no space for you. I was like, That sounds stupid, like some kind of thing you made up. But I didn't say that, and I was like, all right, whatever. And so then I tried again, like a while later, and they said the same thing. And then we tried again, like 2 years later, and they said the same thing. So I guess it actually is real. There is some box in this neighborhood that has all the fiber optic connections, and there's only a certain amount of plugs. So say la vie. But it looks like we have made it. We're now down the dark, dreary, deadly part of the path, and we are on to the next part, which is much, much safer. Although people still manage to find ways to die. Like Shin. Shin died here. I think I also died here. I have a vague recollection of meeting a Grey Dwarf brute somewhere along this situation. And so what we're working on, we have a cart with stuff to build with. I just kind of randomly guessed, so I probably forgot some stuff, but that's alright. And we're going to be showing off how in Path of Magic, you can take coins and you can use them to purchase things. And we're going to do that to purchase the stuff we need to build the little inn that we are going for. Although I haven't really planned the inn very much, so I have a feeling it's going to be, how do I say, overbearingly simple? But we'll see. I'm not quite the builder that other people on this server are, but with some patience, I can definitely do it. Although it takes me some time. I'd have to, like, draw stuff down on paper for it to look alright. It's like there's been some action here. That rock didn't used to be destroyed. Yannick says, yeah, sounds like more people need to request fiber before your ISP is willing to install more connections. Yeah, exactly. I think it's like also one of the things where like I have to just like keep being pushy and then find like one of the, I like keep calling basically and then figure it out. Because usually they'll like offer you to pay basically to upgrade the box. I mean, I don't have a couple $100s to do that, but I know that they've done that with other people. So it's like a pushiness thing. But it's a lot easier for me to kind of figure out what I can do with what I already have. Because obviously at some point in the future, I'll be able to fix the internet situation. But for now, I mean, if I can just wake up early and stream, I mean, that's kind of weird for me, to be honest, having to like wake up and play Valheim. That's usually the opposite of what I try and do. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I love playing Valheim, but I get kind of sad if I just wake up and play video games. I usually need to do like chores and stuff, right? Oh no, did I do this? Oh, I hate it when I do this kind of stuff. I really feel for game developers, because every time you put a reference to a mechanic in your game somewhere, god damn, then what happens when you change the mechanic? You gotta change the reference too. What a pain. It's also a suspicious crater. There's all these areas that it's like, what happened here? I was here like 2 weeks ago and it looks different. Some things have gone down. So we're really close to the spawn now, and we're almost to the magic spot. You'll see it soon. But pretty much there's this big bridge, and when players first join, one of the first things they see, well, if they follow the path, is to like go on this big bridge. So I figure why not have an inn in a nice, obvious, sunny spot that people can see. So we're almost up there. And Yannick says, yeah, been learning that the hard way now that I've been diving into EWP. Oh yeah, tell me about it. Like really, if there's anything you want to talk about EWP, I'd love to chat about that. That's one of the lessons I've learned using Expand World Prefabs. Hey, there it is. There's our spot. It's right here. But the lesson I learned is like, when I first started Expand World Prefabs, I had the attitude of like, there's going to be something players read that teaches them what to do. The problem with that is that it doesn't work well. The mechanics work much better when you basically make part of the game the player learning the mechanic. So you have to know normal Valheim really well, and then make it so whenever they try and do a normal thing in Valheim, it teaches them about your mechanic. For example, here on Path of Magic, there's these boss chests, right? And so you go to the boss altar, you open a chest, it has like 3 slots, and you have to put in certain items. And then when you do, a magic spell casts, and you get the progression item from the boss. It's awesome. The problem, though, is that most people just want to kill Eek. So, like, they don't give a crap. So they're going to try and kill Eek anyway. So you have to keep that in mind. Like, even if people know about your features, they're still going to try and play the normal way. So that makes things sort of overly complicated, right? And this is what we're going for. As you can see, this is our little entrance bridge, pretty much. The start of the world is right over there. And then players have a little bit of a path that they can choose to go down or ignore. Usually they go down it. And then they're on this bridge. And they're greeted with this kind of view, right? And you go down here. And that's why I'm thinking that that spot right there, right where that rock is, it looks perfect. It's like the perfect, obvious spot for some kind of, you know, house or inn or something. Right there. So to get started, I guess we could start chopping some stuff here. Someone has already made a incredibly basic little resting spot here, so we can use this. Oops. Thank you for whoever made this. I appreciate it. I still gotta get used to all this bog witch stuff. There's a whole outfit to get too. I don't even know how to comprehend all that yet. Still working on it. But this, yeah, this is nice. I dig it. I dig it. Now, I guess we gotta mess with some of those trees, because I remember I did an interview with Dakar, and I was asking him some questions about, like, ooh, wow, this is a nice axe. I didn't realize this was so good for wood cutting. But when I was talking to Dakar, one of the things he says about building is that the silhouette of the building is more important than, like, the details. And that people tend to get lost in the details and they forget about the silhouette, and that's what actually matters. So I'm going to try and keep that in mind here, because there's all these trees, which would basically mean that the building doesn't have an obvious silhouette, right? So I guess if we apply that logic, what we have to do is clear some of the trees just in this immediate area so that we can sort of show off the building's profile better. At least that's the idea, because it needs to kind of catch the beginner's attention so that they're like, oh, that looks like a spot to make a bed, right? That's the idea. Nah, how lame. I wish when you were woodcutting, have you ever noticed how, like, if you attack something normally, you have a animation, right? Like there's a series of 3 swings. 1, 2, overhead, right? 1, and then 2, and then the overhead. But if you're cutting wood, it only does the first one on a loop over and over and over again, which, to be honest, I find frustrating. You see, it just does the same thing over and over again. It is what it is, to be honest. Although this definitely, it looks more like I'm really trying to cut the cut the trees with this big axe. It's also really satisfying cutting the little trees because it just takes them out in one hit. Like, I know that's simple, but I genuinely am amused by it. Oh, my run is already 45. I bet all my skills are nothing except run. That's usually how my playthroughs. Oh, 49. That's pretty high. You can tell that skill loss on death is removed because normally this is as high as my skills get, like 28 maybe. But 45, that's crazy. I normally die a lot, so I die way more than most people. Hey, Monster Lord, hello there. Good to see you again. It's funny, I'm streaming at a different time, so all the names are different. Howdy. How are you doing? What have you been up to? I gotta learn this whole, like, talking to the chat thing. You, any of you want to ask any questions? I mean, especially, like, if you want to learn something, or, like, have me explain something, you are fully welcome to, like, ask while I'm live playing Valheim. Because, to be honest, that would be perfect. Because, in the long run, I can't just make Valheim content. I have to, like, branch out. Not necessarily into other games, but I have to figure out a way to branch out into, like, game development and that kind of thing for, like, my own personal future. So, that's why I'm, like, into teaching things and making tutorials, because, like, Valheim alone wouldn't really be enough for me to feel fulfilled. But Valheim combined with learning about scripting and programming and helping other people learn about all these things, it's wonderful. Really good game, good effect on people. Monster Lord says that they are doing fine. How about you? I'm doing awesome, to be honest. Today is my first attempt at a much earlier stream. So I woke up at 4 a.m. and did some chores, and then started streaming at 5. And did I just destroy the chest? I did. That's funny. And so this is a new experience for me. But it works because I have way more energy to speak and stuff earlier in the day. And narrating gets kind of hard once I get sleepy. Like, I kind of just have to put in a lot of effort. Whereas right now, like, I can just talk about what I'm doing. It doesn't feel like I have to explain, like, think about it, if that makes sense. It just happens. It occurs. And that's really ideal with streaming, because you pretty much have to keep up a narrative. You have to keep... It's sort of like a radio show. You know, you have to keep it, like, fill in the silence, but that can be challenging for people. Especially if you haven't practiced that kind of thing. Like I've been just talking and making YouTube content for like 10 years, so I'm really used to just like pressing a switch in my brain and then like explaining stuff. And it actually like has become so much of a thing that it genuinely bothers people in my real life, because I'm like stuck in explaining mode sometimes, which is kind of like lame. People don't like it when you just feel impulsed to explain everything that occurs. So like I try and just shut up unless I'm like making a YouTube video, but it doesn't always work, to be honest. I often find myself in a position where like someone is struggling with something and like I know what it's actually from, or at least I feel like I know, but it doesn't matter. And if I try and tell them, like, they won't believe me or whatever. So I just sort of have gotten used to like listening to people talk about stuff that I know the answers to, but I can't say anything to them, because if I do, they won't believe me, or they'll get offended or something, or I haven't gotten the chance to show it politely. You know what I mean? That's like the story of my life. Hello, Pan. What's up? Good to see you early. I don't know. How is this time for you? Because you're more close to my... Uh-oh, I can't die. Oh, no. I'm going to die. Oh, wait. No, maybe I'll survive here. I don't think I'm going to survive, but let's see. Oh, no, I'm definitely not going to survive. No, I didn't place a spawn. I'm dead. That was definitely expected. What kind of fool goes to the meadows on PoM and doesn't place a new spawn? That's alright, though. I got distracted talking, so it's not really that surprising. Hello, Pan, by the way. Good to see you. I hope this new time isn't easier. Let's see. Monster Lord says, it is certainly more an EU-friendly streaming time. That's for sure. Yeah, well, that's awesome, because honestly, most Valheim players are, like, not in the Americas. So it makes more sense to, like, be in that time period, in all honesty. But at least it'll be way easier to get back to my body now, because I don't have to lug that entire cart of nonsense over there. Let's grab this rested buff. Yeah, and for me, it is currently 5:50 in the morning. Pretty hilarious. I think Monster Lord played on the server before it was Path of Magic. If I remember right, they're one of the players from when it was Path to Ashlands, but maybe they'll correct me. Obviously, they know better than I do. There's been like, I don't remember how many people in total. I have like a timer in Discord now that shows how many people have logged on, but I didn't start using that until like way later on. So I know it's at least like 70 people have tried the server, but I think it's a little bit more than that because I didn't start checking for a while. But the biggest actually, when the server first started, that's when it was the most popular. When I first launched Path to Ashlands, which actually was almost exactly a year ago. It was like a year and, like, in 2 weeks it'll have been a year. And so, yeah, on the first continent, like the way the Path to Ashlands playthrough started, this path here didn't exist. Like, none of this was here. Basically, we started normally, and then once you get to the Bronze Age, then you sail to this continent, and that's where the main path is. Which seems kind of counterintuitive, but it worked really well, because then I was able to use the same world and start the Path of Magic with an actual main path from the starting continent, and like, it was fresh, right? Because we had basically ignored this area. Panan says, in a tower near Swamp Plains Mountain, there's a bed of Hrothgar. Yeah, Hrothgar was like one of the OG builders. He actually built a lot of the big bridges in the like main area. And I feel bad for him actually, because he's the player who taught me that it's not really good to rely on other players building infrastructure. Like, I know that that's something some players feel interested in, and they will start to do it. But for this kind of like huge infrastructure, you need to have it set up ahead of time. Trust me, it makes it so much better for the players, because then instead of them building like big paths and spending all of their time leveling terrain and all of this really boring stuff, they get to focus on like exploration and building their own little paths off of these big paths. So if you're ever thinking about like doing some kind of pathing like this, I strongly encourage you to actually build the path with Devcommands as sort of like events on your server, and you can use the big paths to funnel players around. It doesn't work as well if portals are on, to be honest, which makes a lot of sense. But personally, I find it's a lot easier to manage the players on no portals mode. So I'll never go back to portals, to be honest. Valheim without portals and maps in the game for me is like an incredible experience. I absolutely love it. And it's like, I tried like a bunch of different game types in Valheim, and it wasn't until this one that like I found one that I never went back on. Like, I used to press M all the time habitually for no reason really. I was just used to looking at the map to figure out where I was. But when you do that, you're actually depriving yourself of fully realizing what the game is and the world is. And like, you build a map in your soul, in your mind, in your psyche. And that is what you play off of. And if you have a 2D map that you're always looking at, it delays, it retards the growth of that map in your soul of the game world. Because you may think that you're looking at a screen and you're playing a video game, but really you're being tricked. You're being tricked into making a world in your head, and then the screen tricks you into living in that world in your head. You're not actually playing the world in the screen. You're playing your perception of the world on the screen in your own psyche, in your own soul, so to speak. So your experience in the game has more to do with your own expectations and feelings than it does with the actual world around you. And that's one of the things I focus a lot on Path of Magic, is like figuring out how to basically psychologically trick players so that they don't feel like they know for sure what's going to happen. They really try and make sure. There's always this sense of something could happen. I don't know what could happen. And I find that that makes the world, it's just more amusing to explore because like normal Valheim is a huge world. Don't get me wrong. It's really cool. But once you learn the patterns, like once you've been to all the biomes and you've seen all the enemies and you've seen all the things that can spawn, you start noticing the patterns. You know, you start seeing, oh, meadows always look like this and they often have that. And yeah, there's ways to make things more interesting, but for the most part, it gets kind of boring and like you don't want to explore the whole Valheim world because like what are you going to find? More meadows with meadows in it? More black forest with black forest? More mistlands with mistlands? Like once you get used to the generation, it's not like you're going to find some big dungeon you've never seen before or something crazy, you know what I mean? And for me, that is what Valheim is really missing. It's missing that sense of, I don't really know. If that makes sense. It's like an important part of keeping the exploration alive. So people kind of tend to lose interest in Valheim. And, you know, there's a lot of theory crafting on why that happens around the swamps. People say it's because of the darkness and the biomes and all that. I don't think that's true anymore. To be honest, now what I think is happening is that by the time the player gets to the swamp and maybe the mountains and the plains, they've kind of figured out a lot of the patterns that Valheim uses to generate terrain. And it's just not as interesting anymore. Like, in order to explore the world, you have to feel like there is unknown, that there is uncertainty. Without that, there is no exploration. Like, do you feel like you can go into your house that you've lived in for 5 or 6 years and explore something and find something new? You know? No. It doesn't really happen that way. And that's how, like, people's attitude is with games. The same thing happens. There we go. All right. Now I got a spawn spot set. I've been getting all chatty here, which I guess works out, to be honest. So, let's see. Monster Lord said, I was on the path to Ashlands, but my time ran short after a while, so I stopped. Yeah, I don't blame you. To be honest, Path to Ashlands wasn't as interesting as Path of Magic. Path of Magic is way, way, way more interesting because Path to Ashlands was just Valheim with a path, pretty much. It didn't have all these different mechanics, and like I had no way to answer for like the item accumulation problem and all that other stuff, right? And don't get me wrong, I mean, look at this. I still accumulate items, but at least now we have bigger carts and bigger chests and more item management options, right? At least that's the idea. Hello, No Saints in Heaven. Welcome. No Saints in Heaven says, the greatest pursuit in Valheim is going into the unknown. And I completely agree. And that's kind of what the thing's going for, what I was just ranting about. It's like, base building in Valheim is absolutely awesome. Don't get me wrong. My chicken is freaking out. She must have laid an egg. Base building in Valheim is really awesome. But it needs that other part to it, right? Because you can build a base, but then what? You know, how many people have built amazing, incredible bases, but then they don't end up getting used, you know? It's just kind of a common trope in Valheim. So I'm going to need to focus a little bit here because what we want, a specific thing, is that the new players are going to come down here, and sometimes it's going to be daytime. So that is going to be all lit up. So we're looking for a building like right there that's very obvious and enticing and brings people, like draws them in. So it looks like we need to clear the silhouette a little bit more over there. And then I need to clear the area that I'm going to be constructing in. Because obviously if my bed and stuff is right here, I can't really think. I need to clear this spot. So we're actually going to move that little bed over into this spot over there. Those things are usually pretty safe. But before we do that, let's clear a couple more trees so we can really get that silhouette going. Because if we have a nice spot, everything else sort of will fall into place. We just need to make sure we get that nice spot in the first place. Also, side note, I'd never chopped wood with this iron battle axe before. I actually, like, I hadn't used the iron battle axe. And one of the things I've noticed with PoM, there's these things that can drop, right? Like if you look at this, it says the Path of Magic crafted it. That's because I got this as a rare drop fighting monsters. And what's really cool about that is that it makes it so like you try different things. Because I have all these associations of like things in Valheim that suck and don't work well. Like for example, I feel that way about the Crystal Battle Axe. I know that it is kind of cool, but considering it's a silver weapon and all the things, I don't know. It feels kind of lame sometimes, considering how awesome and epic it looks. So I actually patched it on PoM and made it stronger and did other stuff to it. But I still have the feelings of my vanilla playthrough. And that's something that's really interesting. Like, even though I've made these mechanics, I still feel like a vanilla player. So I haven't really learned how to use all of the mechanics. Hey, sorry about that. I am back now. I had something happened and the internet just completely shut down, but it's back and we're all good. So let's see, I'll reread your comment here so I get back in the zone. No Saints in Heaven says they're currently replaying Valheim and stopped before Hearth and Home, and now they are joining the first world, and they made another world, and they're trying to slow down and build some more outposts and stuff. And that's awesome, to be honest. Valheim is definitely a game where if you slow down and take your time to build things, like, you can have a lot more fun. The base progression loop, you know, the one that keeps you going all the way until the, keeps you going into the bosses, sorry, the progression loop of killing a boss, moving into the next biome that way. It really isn't good for, like, building an immersion. Like, it's really problematic, to be honest. So it's definitely better if you're able to take your time and slow down. But to be honest, in single player, it's hard because, like, when you build stuff, you have to be the one who goes back into the world later. And that can be really challenging. It often is like people build things on single player, but they sort of like, they need a way to socialize that building experience. So people tend to get bored unless they're sharing what they're building with people, or they're practicing builds in single player for something they want to build on a server. That kind of attitude seems to genuinely work quite well. But it seems that without a way to not necessarily socialize, but without a way to involve other people somehow, it always tends to get a little bit more mundane once people aren't there, you know what I mean? Like, that really, it loses the magic. And that's sort of another thing that I've been trying to do with Path of Magic, is figure out, okay, how do we make it so the building experience is sort of the main thing of the game? Because for me, I think that's what Valheim is. Like, the thing that makes Valheim so special is the combination of exploration and building. But Valheim itself does a really bad job of motivating you to build. Like, I know that, you know, they don't want to force people and that kind of thing, but it's just like, the game could be so much deeper if we had more reasons to build stuff. Like, if we had a reason to build a castle to fight a boss, or like, you couldn't fight Moder unless you built a special thing to defend while you fight her. Or like, you know, these kind of things. Like, we don't have any of these mechanics, so people have no reason to build. Like, you build so that you have a spawn spot. But aside from that, you need to figure out that you like building. You know what I mean? And like, I don't know, I don't believe in like leaving things up to the player like that. I think that the players often are suffering and very lonely, and they don't know that they're creative. So you have to sort of like help them figure out that they can do a lot more than they realize. But that's a lot easier said than done, obviously, right? And I will say, like, I mean, I've been able to do this kind of thing because of Iron Gate doing what they do. And now I can use their game to learn things more easily. But that doesn't mean that, like, I would have been able to know these things if I didn't play Valheim. I probably would have done a lot of the same things they did, you know? So in that way, I'm very, very grateful. And whenever I criticize, like, something about Valheim, know that I'm saying that fully understanding that, like, I couldn't have even known to criticize these things unless I was able to play this game. So I'm really grateful for that. And, like, in all honesty, I definitely don't want to ever come across as not liking Iron Gate or anything. They do good stuff. I don't expect them to do all these changes. From my perspective, it's up to us, the players, to make communities, to make mods, to alter the game. Like, Iron Gate will get the message. If there's more players playing modded versions than there are real Valheim players, they'll get it, you know what I mean? But, like, it's up to us to show them all that. Let's see, No Saints in Heaven says, I'm more of a builder. I try and incorporate function and style and keep my builds realistic. Hey, if you're able to enjoy building in that process, that's awesome. I definitely like that too. Like, I enjoy the planning out and, like, the practicality of things, if that makes sense. So I like building, but more when there's a purpose to it. Like this place that I haven't done anything to so far because I've just been chatting with you guys. This place, like, it has a purpose, right? It's a visual spot that is to serve as the introduction betting area to new players. So in my head, there's a purpose to it, right? And that makes it more interesting. Whereas if I just build an inn somewhere, I don't know, it's like, it's a bit more boring. So that's one of the things I like about the no map path situation, is it sort of forces players to have to do that, right? Like, they're forced to try and figure out, okay, there's areas in the path that could definitely use an inn. And, like, if people build an inn there, someone's going to actually use it, right? So that gives people more of the practicality, gives builders in particular more motivation, and helps their projects feel more real. You know what I mean? Let's see. I refreshed my chat, so I missed your other message. You mentioned something about building and then practicality, and then I refreshed it and it all vanished. So now what we're gonna do is actually do the thing that I showed in the very beginning of the video, because I brought this cart here full of nonsense, right? And the cart has coins in it. And we're gonna need some core wood in particular. So I'm gonna show you how in Path of Magic you can buy building resources using coins. The idea here is to make a loop, because if coins are useful, everything in the game that gives you coins feels more meaningful. So what we're gonna do is take a certain amount of coins, in this case 205, throw them on the floor, and then type say buy. And then boom, our coins get converted into 50 core wood. So we can just keep doing this as much as we have the coins for it. In this case, I'm gonna use approximately 200 core wood, I guess. So there we go. Nice. And it doesn't have to be uppercase, by the way. You could just do it like this. Like lowercase like that, it would still work. All right, so now we have all of our core wood, and see, we converted it from coins, and it's actually interesting because, like, one pile of coins, I think if I remember right, it's like 100 weight, right? But that 100 weight in pile of coins gets all this other stuff. So it's actually more effective to keep things in coin form, and you can basically, like, go around with your cart and have a bunch of coins in it, and then as you need things, you can build them. But you can't buy progression stuff for the most part. You can only buy building material. So you still have to, like, progress and do that sort of thing. It's not like all of that's gone, if that makes sense. Hey, let's see, we got some more chat messages to read. All right, No Saints in Heaven resent their message. Thank you, by the way. It says, raids should have rewards depending on which mobs spawn. Late game raid should yield more rewards, and so on. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And even the raid system in general. Wow, the hens are absolutely losing their minds right now. Sorry. The raid system in general is pretty broken, to be honest. It's too abrasive for most players, and that is like a problem. Because really, like, well, I know this now because of what we did on Path of Magic, but on Path of Magic, raids are completely turned off. So, like, you can't get any raids normally. But you can summon raids by putting a trophy up, and then, like, on an item rack, you'll get that raid. And we've found that it ends up being much better. The raid system works really well when you put it in the hands of the players. And that's sort of the problem, is that they tried to make this building game and spice up building, but they did it in a way that ends up being really, like, frustrating for players, because they can't just build because they're, like, scared that they're going to get a ground is shaking event. So they have to start with the trench, and they have to do something to make sure it's safe from the stick trolls, and they have to do all this. And if they don't know about it, then they're destined to sort of get one of those events and then get completely screwed over by it. So I just don't know, to be honest. I don't know how successful that is as a mechanic. But the raids themselves, I definitely think they're useful. It's just the way they occur is problematic. It definitely is bad for the players. All right, there we go. Now, all right, let's see. Edgy Bravo said, building is sick in Valheim. Don't get me wrong, but it's pretty limited in a lot of ways. Not being able to build underground, build heights, limited material types until you get super